Hello, my name is Mike and I'm an in-house consultant here at The Profs. Today I get to talk about computer science and how to get a first in it if you're doing a BSc in the subject. It is an incredibly popular topic to study at uni. We've talked about several different courses at university to do with computer science, but I don't think we've actually really talked, at the very least recently, about how we actually do well in a subject like this. And particularly with so many people going to university studying this subject, you want to be able to find a way of standing out from the crowd. An obvious way to do that would be to get a first. Through my many years of experience actually working with clients already applying for computer science degrees, I feel like I've developed a massive wealth of knowledge in going for a degree like this. For now though, let's get into my top tips on how to get a first in this very demanding yet rewarding subject. And that is going to be specifically to do with understanding how a BSc is structured. Now, I think you might find that to be a little bit of a funny thing if you are in already maybe like the last few years of a BSc, for me to say. Because you might already be like, I already know how it's structured. I get told about this all the time, every year. But I'm not talking about knowing its structure towards the end of a degree. I'm talking about knowing its structure when you start the course, possibly even before. And the benefit of that is that when you know what is going to happen with your degree, you've got time to plan and prepare, at the very least mentally. So what I tend to expect really within a computer science BSc, and I do see this, is that maybe 20 to 30% of that degree is going to be on your dissertation or your final year project. Not every degree has that option. You should be expecting maybe like another 20% on average with different courses to do with your assessment. A lot of it to do with your exams, so maybe that comes in just over half of your course itself in terms of the weighting. And the different years that you're taking these modules as well will have an effect on how well you do. Obviously, the first year does not count, but the first year is where you want to plan ahead. You want to know what is coming up, what to expect, and maybe you can use that to plan out what your second year and third year modules are going to be based on how you think your first year is going. Now, if you've already put some thought into the different possibilities, that already saves you the pressure of having to decide on what you want to do in the future. So I would say get really organized. Use that first year where you are not necessarily having so much pressure on yourself to work out how the rest of your course is going to go. And then you can get into the habit of being really, really structured with your learning. So let's talk about that in particular. How do we learn for something like this in the way that's most effective? Well, obviously a lot of our work is going to be online. We're going to be involved in lots of scrums. We're probably going to be working very collaboratively in small team projects quite a lot, so our communication has to be really, really good. But a lot of your learning, perhaps with programming languages, might actually come from practical experience working on your laptop. So I would suggest actually having a Academy account, or maybe looking at some kind of coding course or coding subscription that you can actually use in order to practice different programming languages. You look at the number of programming languages that computer scientists advertise on their CV. Some of them are, very, very high. They get into about 7 or 8 different languages, even if it's just at a beginner level. So you want to be using your time outside of lectures in order to get a basic understanding of where that is, or what languages are used for what, but not just exposure. The best candidates who are getting firsts know what languages are used in what different contexts, and they can also say in writing that they might be looking at some very complicated recursion algorithms in a particular language with a particular purpose. So they're not necessarily looking at a language absent-mindedly and saying, this is just to build my skills. They're actually doing this in order to find something new, in order to create maybe a product that people are going to enjoy and appreciate, assuming that it might be something that is made for the general public to use. We never know until you're doing it. So I would be saying invest in your programming time. I would also be working out very, very quickly as well actually what kind of reading works for you. Computer science is not typically a degree where you would expect to read, a lot of heavy books on the topic, but you need to work out very, very quickly what kind of reading you're into, whether it's more blog articles and applications that you are better with. Maybe you're not really so much of a fan of reading and you need to go into lots of YouTube videos in order to get a better understanding of how a language works, or maybe a particular paradigm. So I would experiment with different learning styles very, very early on. And that's going to help you with, especially when you are doing lots of different modules at once with lots of different module leaders in order to help you sort of diversify your learning experiences. We're going to jump a little bit ahead now. So one of the last things that you will be doing in your degree, which does hold a significant amount of weight, is your dissertation. And we actually have another video or another couple of videos perhaps where we do look at the structure of dissertations. If you're interested, please have a look here in terms of how we actually structure a dissertation for a subject. We do that with a different subject in mind, but that's still going to be relevant here. But I would be saying with a computer science dissertation, you really want to be making sure you got the right supervisor who actually has similar interests to your own, somebody who is free that you can meet up with regularly, and you want to be decided already on a project as early as possible. You don't want to be working through maybe an essay over a few months and not know what the essay is about. You want some direction. So if you're in a position where you're doing a dissertation, it's probably best to already have a plan in mind. If you don't, really discuss that with your supervisor and try to meet up with them very, very regularly, especially if you're if you're wanting to actually apply for a computer science master's course after this, and you need a good reference. Because obviously, if your supervisor really, really likes you and you've done really good work in your dissertation, that's going to be a great candidate to pick. Now, we mentioned earlier, the dissertation's not the only part of the degree that you need to be thinking about. Of course, you're going to get more in the way of assignments and exams. So my next top tip is just really making sure that you understand the demands of assignments that are given to you, know what they're weighted, and with exams, you don't leave it to chance to do well in those. Take past papers, see how comfortable you are initially, and then if you're not comfortable with any particular area, use that as a guide in order to revise and learn to cover your weaknesses whenever you take that exam for real. You're going to have to get into very regular practice with this, considering you're going to be tested every half year or so. So you should be expecting either maybe 3 or 4 exams in January, perhaps, and then you might get another 3 or 4 in the summer. In some cases, you get all of your exams in one go in the summer there. That's a bit trickier. Does that mean you change your approach with what you do in earlier months? No, you still got to act like you have exams earlier than they actually are. Still treat it like you have a January assessment, and you should be more than prepared for a summer exam. The best way I can say that you prepare for an exam of maybe for computer science though, is you want to be doing it under timed conditions. So there is a difference with just looking at a paper and getting a feel of the questions, which I'd say you should do anyway, and then actually doing it under time conditions where you're trying to replicate the feelings of anxiety or adrenaline that you might get in a real life exam. And the only way to experience that or be comfortable with it and knowing how that feels is actually just doing it under exam practice. So do that with exams, and with your assignments, you can reach out for help there, but do take every one of them seriously. Don't be thinking this is only 5%, so I don't really need to get a good grade in it. Every mark counts, especially if you want to get a first. And my final point in actually getting a first in computer science, we're going to stray away from a little bit of our work to do with exams and dissertations, but reach out to your friends. I know that's a very, very funny thing to say, but everyone is in the same boat. If you are trying to do this alone, then you are not necessarily going to be reaching out for the support that you need. And I would say your friends perhaps are the best sources of understanding maybe things that you do not. It's a great way for you to practice teaching what you know to other people as well. I always say if you can teach a topic, then you absolutely know your topic. And if you cannot teach it, then there may be some gaps in your understanding that still exist. So make sure you get a study group already set up. I had a couple, quite consistently when I was doing my maths degree, and it was maybe the most helpful thing that I've had, been part of ever, because in areas where I was really, really strong, such as abstract algebra and Galois theory, I could help with that very easily to someone whose actual expertise was more to do with statistics and stochastic processes. It's a different set of subjects, I know, but the same principle applies to computer science. If you have someone that is better with understanding the mathematics behind the complexity of algorithms than you are, then lean on that. Follow them, not like a dog, but lean on to what their areas of strengths are. Ask them questions and see whether they can explain it well to you. And it's more likely they can communicate better to you than a lecturer could on an area of weakness that you have. So look out for some friends and get studying together. Hey there, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you have, make sure you leave a comment in the comment section below. If you have any questions, we'd love to hear some discussions from you. Otherwise, if you think that this video is going to be useful for your friends or family, please share it. If you've liked it, make sure you like and subscribe to our channel. And if you want to get in touch with a tutor like me or any one of our subject experts on this, then please have a look at the information on screen and make sure you get in contact. And as always, best of luck with your application.